Now, on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app. O'Connor and Company.
It is 6:37. It's O'Connor and Company. I'm going to get right to it with our guests. So let me just first tell you quickly, it's 7:05 James Rosen, 7:35 Riley Gaines, 8:05 KT McFarland, and then 8:35 Papa John Pizza Man Schnatter. It's Larry O'Connor with Mercedes Schlapp. Good morning, Mercedes. And
good morning,
happy birthday.
Larry.
And happy birthday. Happy birthday to you, Mercedes, because you, like I, we are children of the Reagan era.
We are.
The greatest decade of all, the 80s. And today is President Ronald Reagan's birthday. What a great man he was. And Craig Shirley, of course, had the great opportunity to be able to write about him as a historian and the greatest Reagan biographer there is. Craig Shirley, good morning, and thanks for joining us. Oh, Craig, you there? All right, we'll try to reconnect with Craig Shirley.
No, I'm sorry. Oh. Right there. Right. I'm sorry about that.
There you go. Hey, Craig.
I beg your pardon.
No problem.
Larry.
Listen.
Good morning, Mercedes.
Good morning.
We've been talking about this breakneck pace of Donald Trump here in his second term. Of course, he had 4 years off. But in any way, a lot of people are saying, not that Donald Trump, the man, is anything like Ronald Reagan, the man. But in terms of his momentum, his energy, and sort of the vibe shift that people have felt, people are saying this feels like when Reagan took over from Carter.
Yes, it does. It does feel like that, although I will say Trump is probably going even quicker. A lot of presidents some presidents are known for their first 100 days. FDR probably initiated the whole program with his, New Deal, responding to the Great Depression. But then then Reagan came in and initiated a lot of programs, tax cuts and things like that, regulatory changes and personnel cuts for his presidency. But I would say that Trump is probably even going even faster. It's partially due to the world of communications we live in. We live in a hyperspeed world of communications, so things move much quicker today than they did 40 years ago.
Craig, what do you think what advice would Ronald Reagan give Donald Trump today?
Don't take the advice of the Washington establishment and follow your instincts. Don't take the advice of the people who sip latte.
Sip lattes.
I think he's probably taking that advice, actually. Yeah, although
I know.
Lattes are...
That's fascinating. I think he's doing exactly that, though. I actually think he's kind of going with his gut, and it's creating a firestorm here in D.C.
Oh, it's very upsetting to the establishment. What he's doing is totally upsetting. Look, we live in Washington has two worlds. It has the establishment and the anti-establishment. Right now, Trump is leading the anti-establishment all over the establishment, and the establishment doesn't like it, whether it's the bureaucracy or whatever else. The first rule of the bureaucracy is to defend the bureaucracy. And so the people, working in the federal government are obviously very threatened right now. And the people who depend on those people.
Craig, it was also announced yesterday that Ronald Reagan's official portrait has now been added to the Oval Office alongside, Washington and Jefferson and Jackson. But is this the first time that Ronald Reagan has been up in the Oval Office?
Yes, it is. And that's very heartening that he is. He's been in the East Room, and he's been various places around the White House, but it's the first time in the Oval Office. But I think it's a very good move by Donald Trump to kind of pull the whole
What does
party
that tell
together.
you?
Well, that Reagan's issue cluster of tax cuts, less government, federalism, cultural, life, things like that, still dominate the Republican Party today. And Ronald Reagan and Donald Trump is going after those same issues today that Ronald Reagan brought to the forefront in the 1980 campaign.
Yeah. Well, I think that the one thing Ronald Reagan had, and I just remember being such a young child during this period of time, was the inspirational piece, right? Really defining the good versus evil argument. And I think for Donald Trump, it's his opportunity to do the same. It's saying, are we going to preserve this great republic, Are we going to build on it? Are we going to be that leader in the world and make our country strong from within? And then also on top of that, fight the communists, fight the globalists, and put them in their place and fight our adversaries. And I think that's very Reagan-esque, actually.
Very Reagan-esque. Well said. It's always a question of who's in power and what they want to do with power. The American experiment is unique because the power flows in our republic. The power flows upward from the citizenry to the government. And both Donald Trump and Ronald Reagan and the better presidents understand that and champion that. The worst presidents, like Joe Biden, think that power flows downward, like in the European system, and he gets to tell the people what to do. Donald Trump is obviously reversing that and bringing it back to where the founders and framers wanted it.
I'll tell you this, he also understood the powers of the presidency and how to use them effectively, and a big partner in that was his AG, Ed Meese, and
Yes.
I think that Pam Bondi yesterday sort of flexed that muscle a bit herself. Craig, did you notice that? I just want to make sure it didn't go unnoticed when Mercedes said, I remember I was very little, I was so young, I was a little child. What were you, nursing, Mercedes, when
I was so
when Reagan
young.
was
I
president?
caught that.
I was super young.
Yeah, she was just barely weaned. She was such a tiny.
Yes.
Yeah, thanks for
But
that.
he left an
Mercedes.
impression on me, and my dad was very big in teaching us on how Ronald Reagan was that communist, fighter and anti-communist fighter, and it just left
Mercedes,
such an impression.
Every good dad teaches their children that.
Yeah.
Reagan was very, very popular in the Cuban American community. Very popular. He carried that vote overwhelmingly in 1884.
Well, you want to talk about Ronald Reagan, you get Craig Shirley on the line, and we are honored to have him as a regular guest here and a listener, too. So, Craig, thanks for joining us. Always good to talk to you.
Thank you, Larry. Have a good day. Thank you, Mercedes.